A resolution certifying an executive meeting of the School Board of the City of Norfolk in accordance with the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, whereas the School Board of the City of Norfolk has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the School Board of the City of Norfolk that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore it be resolved that the School Board of the City of Norfolk hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the executive meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening in the executive meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the School Board of the City of Norfolk. I need to know who made the motion and second.
I move. Move to come out of closed session.
And who seconded?
Second.
I didn't hear who that was. I'm sorry.
That was Dr. Gabriel.
Okay, thank you. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan, when you refuse to certify the motion, you have to state for the record your reasons, and that has to be included in the minutes. So if you could just state that so Karen can record it.
Well, just to the best of my knowledge, I think there was an area that we discussed that I thought would be appropriate for a public session, not closed session.
I think that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cloud, Mr. Jordan. Okay, moving on. So I want to welcome everyone if you're just tuning in, and also thank you to everyone, particularly our leadership team for being with us into, I think it's about the 5th hour now. So thank you, and I appreciate everyone's endurance because this is very important, obviously very important business that that we're discussing this evening, and it deserves our full attention. So Ms. Tanner, will you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes. Basine?
Here.
Campson?
Here.
Clanton?
Present.
Gabriel?
Present.
Jordan?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Martin?
Here. Okay, moving on to item 4.03 is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to recognize Ms. Georgia Simpson, our school board student representative. Could you please lead us in the pledge and unmute yourself first?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Martin, Vice Chair Jordan, Superintendent Dr. Sharon Birdsong, board members, and our viewers. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And I also want to recognize our assistant school board student representative who she was just here, sorry. Okay, Amelia Burrs, thank you for waving. The screen keeps adjusting. So thank you so much for bearing with us. I'm really excited that you are all here and sitting in on our work sessions and really observing, the work that's being done in our schools. So
thank you for having us.
So moving on to item 4.04, we have our student musical performance. Ms. Danielle Roby, our senior coordinator of music, please introduce our wonderful performer for this evening.
Good evening, Chair Dr. Martin, Co-Chair Mr. Jordan, school board members, Dr. Birdsong and Cabinet, everyone joining us this evening. It is my distinct honor to present to you an outstanding choral student from Norview High School, Miss Aviana Medina. She is an 11th grader Her choral director is Sarah Tillman, and Ms. Medina was selected for All-State Chorus last spring, and sadly the event had to be canceled due to COVID, but she is, as Ms. Tillman describes, one of the hardest working dedicated choral students. So she's going to be performing I Attempt from Love Sickness to Fly by the Baroque English composer Henry Purcell. And this piece is done quite often as an audition piece for select ensembles and even for college. So my distinct pleasure. We hope you enjoy your performance, and you will see her smart music accompaniment tracking like we did last month.
I attempt from my sickness to fly in day, since I am myself my own fever, since I am myself my own fever and pain. No more now, comfort with pride, no more swell. Thou canst not raise forces, thou canst not raise forces enough to repel. I attempt from my sickness to fly in pain, since I am myself my own fever, since I am myself my own fever and pain. For love hath no madness, music and fate, to make us seek ruin, to make us seek ruin, and love those that hate. I attempt from my sickness to fly in vain, since I am myself my own fever, since I am myself my own fever and pain.
Brava. Excellent job. Aviana, would you like to say something, say a few words about the piece you chose? Have you performed it elsewhere? Is this something that maybe you performed in the All-State Chorus?
I didn't perform this piece in All-State Chorus, but we practiced it a lot in class for the seniors when they did senior honor choir. So that's why I decided to choose the piece.
It's wonderful, and also congratulations for your achievement with the All-State Chorus. We also have a singer on our school board. I don't know if you recognize Mr. Carlos Clanton. Mr. Clanton, would you like to say a few words? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I muted myself. Wonderful. It brought back memories back when I was in school there, but absolutely wonderful. You were spot on, and much success. Do you intend to pursue music after you graduate?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for being here this evening. It was wonderful, wonderful, great job. Please keep it up. Okay, moving on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Birdsong.
Good evening, Madam Chair Martin, Vice Chairman Jordan, members of the school board, and members of our community. I'm excited to share some items of interest with you and our community this evening. First, I want to recognize Mrs. Kirsten New and her team at Ocean View Elementary School, who were awarded the Virginia Purple Star Distinction for their work in supporting military-connected students and families. Ocean View Elementary received this distinction last Friday, which brought the total number of NPS schools with Purple Star distinctions to 11. The 10 other schools that have received this designation are the Academy for Discovery at Lakewood, Bayview Elementary, Camp Allen Elementary, Granby Elementary, Larchmont, Mary Calcott Elementary, Sewell's Point, Terrellton Elementary, Willard Model, and Willoughby Early Childhood Center. We are so proud of all of our schools that go above and beyond the call of duty to support our military-connected students and families. As a part of the National Bullying Prevention Month effort, I want to acknowledge that today is National Unity Day, a day to wear orange to demonstrate kindness, inclusion, and acceptance. You can see I'm wearing orange this evening to demonstrate my support of this effort, and many of our school board members and staff are wearing orange this evening as well. Across the country, more than 1 in 5 school-age children report being bullied. So we know this is a real issue for students, families, and schools. Unity Day is an effort to raise awareness and take action to eliminate bullying everywhere. So a gracious thank you to those who chose to wear orange today and for being unified on this important topic that deeply impacts the social and emotional well-being of our students. Additionally, the Commonwealth of Virginia has designated October as Disability History and Awareness Month, which provides us an opportunity to be aware of the contributions that individuals with disabilities have made. In addition, disability history education and awareness are designed to promote positive attitudes in schools that will result in a culture of mutual respect, understanding, and equal opportunity for all. We know our students with disabilities represent a wide array of talents and skills and enrich all of our lives as we see them meet and overcome the challenges they may face. We give special thanks to our families and members of our community who are going above and beyond in the extra mile to support our students with disabilities during this unprecedented time. Our video this evening features some of the many wonderful specialty programs that Norfolk Public Schools offers to our secondary students. Our annual showcase of specialty programs will be virtual this year, so our video gives us a behind-the-scenes look at the production and some of the outstanding staff that make these programs so successful. This video will be used as a part of the promotional efforts to encourage students to apply for admission into these specialty programs. Next, we will see an overview of the Here Comes the Bus app, which is set to make its debut once students begin taking school bus transportation back to school. This app will enable parents and guardians to track their child's bus to see if it's on time or running a few minutes late. It will be a great communication tool to keep families apprised with up-to-minute information. Lastly, we will see a wonderful video award nomination of a very deserving NPS employee, Mr. Richard Hilton, a building custodial supervisor from our Department of School Nutrition. The video will demonstrate why we have nominated Mr. Hilton for an award sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education called RISE, which stands for Recognizing Inspirational School Employees. Mr. Hilton definitely has our vote for being an outstanding and inspirational employee on Team NPS. Please roll the video.
Representatives from every specialty program in Norfolk Public Schools recorded informative presentations for the upcoming Virtual Specialty Program Showcase Night.
We are so excited. We asked TV47 to help us create a virtual showcase night for our specialty programs because we aren't able to do it in person, but we still wanted that feel and we wanted the excitement around it that there has been in years past, and we really want to get the good information out to families.
I think it's an excellent way for us to be able to present to the students and then to understand and to have a chance to see our programs, what we do in our programs throughout the city. I hope that they'll see the variety of what we have to offer at Booker T. Washington High School, the array of talent, the teachers, the courses, the opportunities for fine arts, for those students who are serious and want to go beyond high school and look at our academy a little bit with a second glance.
Although it's not ideal, because we specialize in tech areas and tech fields in North Star, we're kind of excited about having the virtual format. I think that we can reach infinitely more people so that they don't have to travel, they can sit in the comforts of their own homes and get more information that way. I really hope that they get jazzed about STEM fields and know that there's an outlet for them to explore those fields through North Star.
I feel very grateful to be here. I have never been in a TV show. I've never been in a new studio, and it's been a really good experience. I love to share my ideas and spread the message about the program so we can get more people interested into this STEM field. And although it is virtual, I think many people get to watch it and they can get the message.
Norfolk Public Schools Virtual Specialty Program Showcase will be available on the NPS website on Thursday, November 5th. Middle school programs will be online at 5 o'clock, and high school programs will be online at 6 o'clock. All presentations will be accessible on our website beginning on November 6th.
Glad to roll out this year an application. It's called Here Comes the Bus. And this will allow parents to be able to track their child's school bus to find out how close it is to pick up, and also when it arrives at the school. In the afternoons, they'll be able to see when it departs the school and then when it arrives back to the child's destination. It's a application that's available on either through the Google Play Store or through the Apple Store. You could track it on a cell phone, a tablet, or even on a computer. Essentially what will happen is now, let's say in the morning, when your child's bus is approaching its bus stop, there will be a radius that is developed to let you know when the bus enters the pickup zone. And then once the child is picked up, you'll get a notification that the child has been picked up. And then when the child gets to the school, it will give you a notification that the child has arrived at the school. So we think it's going to be quite beneficial to parents, because I know they're always asking, they've been asking for something of this nature for some time, a means to they could follow the bus and find out, where their child is, or at least where the bus is at and when it arrives at destination.
Norfolk Public Schools has nominated Richard Hilton, the building supervisor at School Nutrition, for the RISE Award. This national award, which stands for Recognizing Inspirational School Employees, is specifically for classified employees who provide outstanding service to students and the community.
Richard Hilton is the building supervisor for School Nutrition, and while most of his functions are custodial related, he does a little bit of everything. When he is called upon to transport Norfolk Public School students, he will drive a school bus. He also works for the division as a nighttime custodian. He understands that hungry children cannot learn, and he will do whatever he needs to do to ensure that the students in Norfolk Public Schools have received healthy, nutritious meals.
Mr. Hilton is a great guy. He gives 110% every day. He gives new meaning to the phrase, keep a song in your heart, because he always has a song in his heart, and he was always humming, beautiful music, beautiful voice, but I love the way he connected with the community.
Well, his attitude is very fun-loving and very happy. You'll never catch Rick complaining about anything. He always has a little joke to tell, or he always brings a smile to your face when you encounter him.
He's a very committed, hardworking person. He inspires other people to do the same, and he's just a very humble person.
I'm grateful they have that confidence in me, but anyway, I see a lot of other folks that would certainly deserve it, and anyway, so I feel humbled and grateful at the same time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the school board. That concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Next on our agenda is item 4.06. It's the school board clerk's report. Ms. Tanner.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent Dr. Birdsong, board members, and our viewers at home. It gives me great pleasure to honor our school board members for their school board VSBA Academy Awards. So I just want to note some recognitions here real quick that the VSBA sent us. We have 3 award of distinction recipients. First one is Tanya Basine, Rodney Jordan, and Dr. Adele Martin. They have 84 credits. Carlos Clanton received an award of honor with 66 credits. Lauren Campson and Christine Smith received an award of excellence with 48 credits, and an award of achievement goes to Dr. Noel Gable with 24 credits. Let's congratulate them for their work and trainings through VSBA.
Good job, team.
Yes, and I will be sending through the mail your certificates and your coveted pins that you can wear on your appliques or whatever.
Thank
And
you.
next, thank you. Now I would like to share the November recognitions and observances. State Superintendent Dr. James Lane put forth a resolution recognizing the month of November as Family Engagement and Education Month and encourages the partnerships between families, schools, and communities working collaboratively throughout a child's educational journey that results in students of all backgrounds and abilities achieving at higher levels, becoming productive citizens, and contributing to our communities. The partnerships between families, schools, and the community must be viewed as equal with shared responsibilities with the goal of educating the whole child to ensure student achievement and success. Next, November 8th is National STEAM Day. Also on November 8th is National Parents as Teachers Day to encourage parent teachers organizations and parents to join forces to support children and their educational goals. And we recognize the week of November 9th through the 13th at School Psychology Awareness Week with the theme, The Power of Possibility, that highlights the important work school psychologists and other educators do to help all students grow, thrive, and bloom. Next on November 10th is National Young Readers Day as part of the National Young Readers Week, November 9th through the 13th. And the National Education Association, NEA, commemorates American Education Week beginning November 16th through the 20th with the following recognitions. They celebrate Parents' Day on November 17th, Education Support Professionals Day on the 18th, Educator for the Day on the 19th, and Substitute Educators Day on November 20th. The National Parental Involvement Day is November 19, 2020, and it provides a yearly opportunity for schools and families to honor and highlight the powerful contribution parents and caregivers provide at the school and home to support student success. We especially appreciate the hard work and dedication that our parents are providing our students during this online learning environment. And Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Tanner. I want to echo the importance of, definitely this role. This year highlights the role of the parent as an educator and parents and guardians and all of the hard work they're doing, while we're in our virtual learning state, and just, keeping our kids engaged and on track. And we truly appreciate it and hope that this will, it needs to continue throughout whatever the future brings us. I think our parent engagement and our children's education is essential. And I'm glad that we're recognizing our parents and guardians for doing such. Okay, the next item on our agenda is 4.07. It's we're actually, unfortunately, because we are running behind, we're going to have to postpone the resolution for the late Dr. Anna Dodson and her family. So we're going to postpone that till next month. So we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. And Ms. Smith seconded. Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Yes. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. All right, great. The ayes have it. And moving on to our decision/discussion agenda, we have our monthly financial report.
Thank you, Madam Chair Martin. At this time, I'm going to ask our Chief Finance Officer, Mr. Stephen Jenkins, to present the monthly financials to the board. Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairwoman Martin, Vice Chairman Jordan, Dr. Birdsong, and members of the school board. I'll review the September financial report with you this evening and then provide some responses to several questions you asked last month regarding the August report. For the first 3 months, the general fund revenue collections totaled $53.8 million, or 16% of the $337 million budget. For the same 3 months, we collected 25.1% of the budget in fiscal 2020 and 21.3% in fiscal 2019. The drop in revenue between the years, much of the difference is between the current and previous year concerns city transfers for operations. I mentioned this last month, but I think we need a little more elaboration. The city funding is determined by Norfolk's local revenue allocation policy that was adopted by City Council in 2018. Under the allocation policy, city funding is 29.55% of specific non-dedicated local tax revenues collected by the city. These are primarily property taxes, business licenses, and consumer taxes. The allocation policy excludes city revenue levied for specific purposes unrelated to schools. Our share of the non-dedicated revenue for this year is just under $121 million. Through the end of September, we had requested and received $15 million of the $121 million allocation. We typically request transfers of the allocation each month based on our cash requirements. Cash requirements include money needed to pay employees and vendors as compared to the cash we already have on hand and the money we receive from the Commonwealth. Typically, we receive between $6 and $20 million each month. During the first 3 months of the year, we requested and received a single transfer of $15 million. We did not request or receive transfers from the city in either August or September because we had sufficient cash on hand to meet all operating costs. Our second request for funding was $10 million, and it was received in October. While the city did not transfer money in August or September, we expect the full $121 million will be required by the end of the year, and I anticipate future requests will range between $6 and $15 million each month. We have every reason to believe the city will honor a full request up to the annual appropriation. On page 3, we see the general fund expenditures for the first 3 months totaled $50.3 million, or 14.9% of the budget. During the preceding 2 years, spending was for the first 3 months was 19% of the fiscal 2020 budget and 17.4% of the fiscal 19 budget. There were no budget transfers exceeding $50,000 during the month of September. On page 4, you see highlights. The highlights provide 2 graphs of monthly revenue and spending for each month of the year. The current year data is displayed only in the first 3 months with the red columns. Monthly comparisons for the previous 2 years are shown for the entire 12 months in blue and orange. An estimate of your monthly budget is displayed with the green background. More detailed information on our budget is available starting on page 5, and a quarterly grant status report begins on page 15. If you have any questions or comments, I can pause for them now. Hearing none, if I could, there were several questions we received last month, and I'd like to address those now. The first question concerned the city allocation policy for sharing revenue with Norfolk schools. As I mentioned earlier, we receive 29.5% of specific non-dedicated tax revenues each year. For last year, fiscal 20, the original budget estimate was $126 million. With the coronavirus, the estimate was revised downward between $3 and $5 million. For last year, we received preliminary information from the city indicating that our allocation was $124.7 million, or $1.3 million less than our original budget. So it was better than a worst case estimate that was made in the spring, but slightly down from the original. For fiscal 21, the current year, our budget is again just under $121 million. This was about $7.4 million less than the original pre-COVID estimate. For fiscal 2022, the revenue sharing formula or policy would require estimates to be sent to us in September, but these have been delayed until November 14th, when the City Council holds a workshop. This is on a Saturday. The coronavirus has complicated the city's financial projections, leading to a delay. I received a second question regarding the public school fund balances. The unassigned fund balance at June 30th was $11.4 million. Of this amount, $4.4 million was appropriated by City Council in 2020, earlier last year. Some went to the textbook fund, and the remainder went to the facilities fund for building issues. That left a fund balance which was a surplus in fiscal 2019 of $7 million. This portion is still available, but will require appropriation by City Council. Options for the use of the remaining fund balance include the capital program and fund and revenue shortages in fiscal 21 if that is necessary. We will also identify uses for the fiscal 2020 surplus once that audit is completed later this year. Finally, there was a third question concerning the CARES grant, specifically what services are paid from the grant. In addition to acquiring personal protective equipment and devices to enable student learning in a remote environment, the CARES funds also are used to supplement programs that improve student literacy, student athletics, assistance for students who have not completed their assignments last year, teacher assistance for health and PE education, physical education, preschool screening, eligibility support, and IEP updates, and finally, student wellness that includes the hiring of psychology interns in efforts to address social emotional learning. Chairman Martin, that concludes my comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Are there any questions? Mr. Jordan?
A couple of questions. With the September 30th enrollment projected, well, I guess actual decline, I'm not sure what the state's current position is in terms of the loss of enrollment and any protections there, but can you share with us what we're looking at in terms of impact dealing with enrollment drops?
I don't have the specific, I apologize, I don't have the specific amount in front of me, Mr. Jordan, but it's not a small amount. I am happy to say, though, that both houses of the Assembly are calling for a hold harmless for this current year, so that we are hopeful that a bill will emerge from the General Assembly and be signed by the governor that would hold us harmless, because we really are not the only district that has had this very large decline in enrollment. I think across the state there's a decline of about 36,000 or so students, and many districts are in similar situations. So we're hopeful that the General Assembly and the governor will address that.
Second question is, if the board working with Dr. Birdsong has some discussions around expanding childcare options in our schools and providing support to the providers, or actually to the families, so that the cost of attending these programs could be purchased down. Is there an appropriate funding stream where such a thing could be done? I don't know if it would be eligible under the CARES Act, but if we were to look at something like that, is there an appropriate line item where we would look at in order to have that discussion?
We've certainly not identified funds for that purpose. It is possible that the CARES Act might be used for that. I would say if that were to occur, of course, it might displace some other use of those same funds, but that would require some investigation. I don't know I don't know the absolute answer to that. I mean, there's a possibility. We would have to investigate.
And just as a follow-up, I saw where there's supposed to be some additional CARES Act funding coming to school divisions. Can you describe how that would occur for Norfolk Public Schools?
Yes, earlier this month, I believe on October 9th, the state superintendent did release funds for each of the school districts in the state. It was based on the enrollment, or excuse me, the membership at September 30th in each of the districts. Norfolk's share, I believe, is 4.5. It's around 4.5 or 4.8 million. I don't have the specific numbers, but it's more than 4 and less than 5 million. We have until December 30th to spend those funds. Our expectation is that we would move some of the spending that was placed in the original CARES Act, was coming from the original CARES Act, and we would move it to this new funding stream that has a much shorter time period. So yes, we did receive additional funds. It was a very significant amount, and we're working towards spending those funds down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Jenkins? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Could I get a motion to accept the monthly financial report as presented?
I move that we accept the monthly financial report as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Second.
Ms. Campson seconded. Ms. Tanner, please call the question.
All right, thank you. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. The ayes have it. Okay, moving on. We have the Virginia School Board Association delegate nomination. Does anyone want to make a nomination? Mr. Jordan?
Yes, I'd like to move that we have Ms. Basine serve as our delegate.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations? I see you, Ms. Campson. Go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Carlos Clanton to continue in that role.
Okay, do I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Gabriel seconded. Okay, Ms. Tanner, would you like to call the roll for the nomination of Ms. Basine and then for Mr. Clanton?
For Basine?
I mean,
Wait a minute.
I guess we could just go through. Do you want us to say aye, or do you want us to go through and just say who we choose? How would you prefer to call the roll?
I can.
We just call the name.
I'll just, okay.
Leave it up.
Okay, all for Basine. She's the first one on the list. So when I say Basine, I'm doing the vote.
Ms. Basine, yes.
The vote is for Basine. Ms. Basine?
Basine.
Are you saying aye?
Well, we're just saying.
No, I thought you said the name.
Just to say the name.
Yeah, I said Basine. All this for.
I thought we say the name.
We're going to say the name of who we're voting.
Oh, you want to say the name and tell me? Oh,
yeah, sorry for the confusion.
Okay, Basine. Who are you saying?
Basine.
It is Basine. Okay. Campson.
Clanton. Whatever. Carlos. What time is it?
Let's hold it together.
It's late. Clanton.
Clanton, yes, thank you.
Gabriel.
Mr. Clanton.
Okay. Jordan.
Ms. Basine.
Smith.
Basine.
And Martin.
Clanton.
Okay, we have 4 for Clanton and 3 for Basine.
Okay. Great, thank you. We did amend our agenda to add item 6.04 to continue our discussion on transitioning to in-person, some form of in-person learning environment. And so, Ms. Tanner, can I ask you to pull up the slide that we left our conversation on? I believe it was 31 from the reopening plan. Okay. Looking at my notes. So where we left this was really the question around the beginning stages of our reopening. So we had, sorry, I have so many notes in front of me. I have to go back. Just a moment. My second page. Okay. So we had some discussion around hybrid. Well, okay, so we had some discussions around a few of our members are not comfortable with the hybrid. I'm gonna table that for a second. So in our first phase, who do we want to include? Again, Mr. Jordan, Ms. Basine, both like the idea of our equity and opportunity students, and also including above and beyond the self-contained students for our special education population. Am I correct in that?
And Ms. Martin, I agree with that. I told you the only thing I disagree with was the time you kept the dates in there. So I also agree with that grouping. And I guess we'll talk about pre-K. That's the only one I don't agree in that first one.
Right.
So, so I heard from Dr. Gabriel, Mr. Clanton, Ms. Campson, and Ms. Basine. Where were you on pre-K?
I could, that's a tough one for me, but I can acquiesce to, K, starting with K. Kindergarten with, yeah.
So K through third?
Isn't that in the same grouping though? Is that what level one is? Is that same thing as K?
Well, phase in one was pre-K through third. And what the conversation really narrowed in on just pre-K, not having pre-K. So just entering the phase one would eliminate pre-K and phase in K through third.
I know, but what I'm saying is that in the same grouping though? I'm just trying to figure.
Yes, it's in that first bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's the same thing.
Yeah. And honestly, when the conditions allow that, based on what we agreed on, I do want pre-K, included in that. But if that is going to be a sticking point with the board, then, but right now you're asking us where we are, right? With just that group.
Right. This group was the only group that there were some adjustments proposed to be considered. And let me just backtrack for a minute. So once we get to the 14 consecutive days of either declining or level metrics in the greens, as we had agreed, meaning the two least restrictive, I'm trying to think of the wording, I don't have the diagram.
Lower and lowest risk.
Lowest risk, yes. When the primary and secondary indicators are in the greens, then we will initiate phase one. And so we want to come to terms on who does that include. So right now, it would be the equity and opportunity students would begin the hybrid schedule of special education self-contained plus additional IEP students at Dr. Birdsong's discretion, English language learners at levels 1, 2, and 3, and kindergarten through 3rd grade. Is there any opposition to that? Dr. Gabriel and then Ms. Basine.
Yes, I would prefer. I think that's too many kids all at one time, and so I would split that group up. I'm comfortable if we want to say the equity and opportunity students, which would include the special education and the English learners. Although I think that we would have some challenges with some of the level 3 ones, but I would start with those first. And then on a second stagger, I would then bring in the K through 3 students.
Okay, Ms. Basine and then Ms. Campson.
Yeah, so where I am after all the discussion that we've had so far and hearing, all the back and forth, I am suggesting that we are all virtual for most kids, but we are going to phase in this group and phase it in ask the administration to look and see how we could do this at a 4 to 5 days. How many kids could we bring in if we were to optimize the number of days that they're in the school building? And so I think that to me would help, other than saying all of those kids in a hybrid fashion. How many kids could we bring in for 4 days a week? Could we do that?
Dr. Birdsong, can you respond to that, please? Do you have a response?
So again, I'm thinking about the CDC's guidelines and how we need to make sure that our kids are grouped in cohorts as much as possible. What we presented to you is how we thought we could maximize the number of children, getting them into the building in a safe manner. And that's what I have presented to you. So at this point, I'm not quite sure what else you're asking me to do. If you could be a little more clear about that. Because we can bring in all of our children, our self-contained children at the appropriate time, in accordance with what the board has directed, that we could bring in our self-contained children 4 days a week without any issues. When you start talking about other grade levels like 1, 2, and 3, again, it would have to be on a hybrid model based on the numbers. There's just no way around the simple mathematics on this.
Okay.
Ms. Campson?
I like the suggestion of splitting the special education students and the ELLs, and then take the primary grades off. So if the first bullet becomes, if we get rid of those dates, the first bullet becomes phase 1, and then we split phase 1 into a second bullet that is K to 3, then that would allow you to go ahead, as you said, and do the students with special needs full days, because they have their own buses and everything. They're on their own. They're already in small groups. So that sounds like a great solution for that part. And I like having the K to 3 ones separate. And as far as the hybrid model goes, it's not my favorite. However, I understand why Dr. Birdsong did it. She gave us very good examples. And at this point, we need to have I'm willing to compromise on that, as I see a lot of people are compromising. I appreciate the compromise on the pre-K 3s and 4s. And so my compromise would be to go ahead with the hybrid model as it is, except for the SPED ones. Everyone else could, I would be willing to accept that to get this going and begin some person-to-person once the health rubrics are set. So for me, pre-K is taken care of. So that makes that concern I had. We won't use these dates anyway. We'll just call it like Dr. Martin's been doing all along, calling them phases, phase 1, phase 2. That's made it much clearer for me. Thank you, Dr. Martin. That really made a difference. And splitting off the K to 3 so that instead of, you'd have actually 3 bullets in here. And it could be that you decide to do them, in the middle, but since we're not doing dates, so that we would have one extra thing would be that.
So what we have now at this point, just so we're all on the same page. So what I'm considering phase 1 would be to remove pre-K and K through 3.
Right.
We add K through 3 to phase 2, which we go to the next bullet down. It would be all grade 4. It would be grades K through 5 if you add them together. So are we saying that we want phase 2 to be grades K through 5, or do we want K through 3?
K through 3.
Phase 3, 4 through 5.
Yes.
Yeah, K through 3.
Which is kind of what y'all said already. Yeah, K to 3 would be phase 2, and then grades 4 and 5 would be now phase 3.
Yes.
And then I would go ahead and vote for the hybrid schedule. The only place we wouldn't have it would be in the first phase. It wouldn't be a hybrid. They would get their 4 days.
So phase 3, so January 4th becomes phase 4. So all middle school hybrid. Any opposition to that?
I would like to keep K3 in the first phase.
I'm sorry?
I would like to keep K3 in the first phase.
You want K3 in the first phase?
Yes.
So my note taking is a little crazy. Okay, Mr. Jordan.
Just for those that have the concerns about pre-K, we're saying this is part of the phase in when it's all green, correct? Yes. So is there ever a time prior to a vaccine that we're going to be comfortable with some pre-K students being able to have access to in-person instruction?
I definitely think that there could be, Mr. Jordan, but at this time, with the circumstances being what they are and the strict CDC guidelines, I don't think that it would be, and this is in my opinion, I'm not ready to have pre-K kids in person with the hybrid model, even though they would be getting that, they would be seeing face-to-face instruction 2 days in person, 2 days virtual. I think that from what I have heard is that they are making those meaningful relationship building connections currently right now. And I would just like to keep it that way with the circumstances being what they are.
Yeah, I guess my question was if it's all green and if there's parents who would like for their children to have some in-person instruction, if there's research and data suggesting that students can benefit from that in-person instruction. I hear about the hybrid piece, that is what it is. I'm just trying to get clear because I hear pre-K getting pushed out phase by phase, even when we're talking about all green. I'm just trying to get an understanding, ask the question the other way. Under what conditions are we willing to allow for pre-K students who could benefit from in-person instruction to receive it?
So I think for pre-K, what it comes down to is that one of your primary indicators is being able to fulfill the 5 criteria for mitigation. I don't think that we can count on our pre-K kids to keep masks on. I don't think that we can count on our pre-K kids to be socially distanced. I don't think that staff members are going to see a crying 3-year-old and not want to go and hug them and wipe their tears. And I think that it puts our staff members at increased risk because they're going to want to reach out and provide that excellent care to the kids. And I think it just puts, with the age that they are developmentally, I just think that it decreases our ability to provide those mitigation risks. So essentially, I wouldn't feel comfortable with them coming in just because I don't think that the division could implement those mitigation strategies as effectively as we could with older children. That's my concern.
I like for us to find a way to provide the opportunity for pre-K for families that will like it.
I saw Miss Bassine had her hand up, and then Mr. Clanton. But I think this is a really important pause point. I'd like to know. I also, like I said earlier, I'm all for Dr. Birdsong and her staff's plan. I'm ready to support it in full. So that said, I think we have I've heard from preschool teachers who they can't wait to see their kids in person, and they're really excited about it. And they're already thinking of ways to implement the CDC guidelines and keep it safe for them, because they feel like that's where the magic happens, is in person. Not to take away from anything they're doing right now online, because they're doing an amazing job. So I would like to know, by maybe show of hands, how many people would like to keep pre-K in phase 1?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. All right. So I think we're just going to have to take it out of phase 1 at this point in the conversation.
Can I add?
Well, we have Ms. Bassine and then Mr. Clanton up, and I'll put you behind Mr. Clanton. Go ahead, Ms. Bassine.
I'm sorry. I might have been sitting like this or whatever, but I didn't have my hand up yet.
Okay, so it's just 2.
I think I was just doing this. Yeah.
Okay, so just Mr. Jordan and I. Okay. Okay.
Wait, are you talking about for the pre-K right now?
Are you talking about discussion?
The pre-K in phase 1.
No, I did have my hand up for that. I thought you asked if I had a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
maybe you broke out. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, then let's move to Mr. Clanton and then Ms. Campson.
Yeah, mine was just really a comment in regards to the pre-K. Without naming an organization, Non-Norfolk Public Schools, I've discussed with a pre-K instructor who started with 15 kids in August, and now they're down to 6. And those other students who are not a part of that 6 have all had some type of COVID-related exposure, or they're not in the classroom. So this is why my concern is about rushing them in the first phase. And it's about those mitigation concerns about maintaining masks. I'm not saying that every teacher couldn't be able to do it, but again, it still goes back to my prior issues about particularly the number about those vulnerable communities and that are going to be in there. And pre-K, I just, they want to hug on you. They want to, you want to have that social piece. And I saw some of the things that what we were proposing, and I just got some concerns. So I think you've gotten what you got, Ms. Martin, in regards to taking it out of the first phase. I do want to get them back in school at some particular point. And I think if we're sticking with the green, but later, once we've gotten others in there, that I think there's an opportunity for us to phase them back in. But I don't think they need to be the first group.
Okay, Ms. Campson. You're on mute.
Put yourself back on mute.
You're on mute again.
Sorry. Okay, this is kind of an extension maybe of what Mr. Clanton just said, but I understand the concerns of people, of the board members who would like to get them in also. what if we actually put something in the schedule that would, rather than waiting until months and months go by, what if we said, once we have all the elementary kids in place, in the second box, oh, you don't know where I'm going, in the second box where it has, where we take the fourth and fifth, they're in there. So we've got the whole elementary except for pre-K. What if we put in there, not to start them, but we put in there, revisit pre-K to make a decision, you know, and decide if we need to push it down the road more. It seemed kind of like, Mr. Jordan, I could be mistaken, but it seemed like you were simply saying, when can we look at it? Or are we just going to do it until June? And so to me, that would mean, what if we look at it again after the 4-5 phase finishes, and it goes a couple of weeks or however long we're going to do the in between each phase, and then we revisit now based on what we've seen in the elementary schools, especially with maybe the K and ones. Are we ready to maybe try and do the pre-Ks? Would that be a good compromise there?
Let's talk to our pre-K eliminators. What do you, I don't know what to say. So, what are your thoughts? Let's hear from you. Do you think phase 3 would be the appropriate time to consider once we have the elementary school filled, that would be the appropriate time to then put the pre-Kers back?
Well, not necessarily bring them back, but discuss it again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to discuss it at every phase, but what it boils down to is, are we comfortable with pre-K kids abiding by the mitigation strategies? But I'm comfortable to discuss it.
Yeah, just so we know it's on here and pre-K parents know where we're going to look at it.
Okay. So you're saying with the 4 or 5 grouping?
After the 4 or 5 kids have been grouped, but before we bring in the middle school kids, we discuss whether or not we think at that point in time, based on what we've seen with the young children already there, is there a possibility we could give it a go?
Okay. I could go
But
with
not,
that.
but not commit to anything. But we commit to the fact that we're going to bring it back for discussion, because by then we're going to have some evidence of what's happening in the elementary schools.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think the reality of this is that every time we move to the next phase, up until phase 3, the new phase 3, we're probably going to revisit.
Right. But just to make sure it's in writing for parents to see, and they see where we're going to look at it again.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ms. Campson.
We need for the parents to know where our minds are.
Okay. So we have 5 phases to go back to 100% pending the discussions on pre-K.
Okay, that sounds good.
So can we just review it one time, just so I make sure I got it? So phase 1 is equity and opportunity?
Yes, phase 1 is equity and opportunity students begin hybrid schedule with special education self-contained. And again, there was the IEP students.
IEP.
I thought we weren't doing hybrid with the self-contained SPEDs.
Right.
Because remember Dr. Birdsong said she could do that.
Right.
They
would work okay.
The self-contained would have 4 days.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
They have their own buses and everything.
It's 4 days.
Right, 4 days. Because we're leaving the Wednesday in, aren't we? The Wednesday we're leaving the teachers to have Wednesday for training and planning.
Wednesday is asynchronous district-wide.
Right, thank you.
So it's 4 days a week for the self-contained students
only.
And is it?
What about the English language learners?
English language learners how does that work?
Hybrid.
2 days a week? And they stay home 2 days a week?
Dr. Birdsong
talked about putting them on a hybrid schedule, but we could certainly review that again to see if we could bring them in 4 days a week, but it would have to be levels 1 and 2.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you go with the centers that y'all were thinking about?
Likely, because that way it would just make, we would have to make any sense of this model.
And then when their grades come in, they'll just go back in with their grades in their classroom they're assigned to. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then what about phase 3? Dr. Birdsong, where would they fit?
Well, you skip phase 2. So
Yeah,
phase,
can we go back to phase
I'm
one?
sorry, not
Can we
phase
go to phase 1, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. I mean, English language learners.
Or phase 1.
they
in
would
phase
go in
1.
phase 1.
Yes, you said you could look at English language learners for levels 1 and 2 for 4 days,
And some 3. We could look at that. I know we can definitely do it on a hybrid, but if we're thinking of a model to put them all, well, to put them in different schools in cohorts, that's what would be optimal if we could do that.
Okay, and then remove all pre-K through 3. Is there anyone I'm leaving out?
Not for phase 1. Self-contained.
No, you're good.
Children with disabilities.
And so no hybrid in phase 1.
Yeah. Adele, Dr. Martin, can you see Carlos and I? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was looking at my screen and reading the slide just so I could follow along. So yes, go ahead, Ms. Vacine, and then Mr. Clanton.
Okay, so, and with the special education, are we talking K-12?
We're talking K-12 self-contained children.
Okay.
Yes.
And then for ELL levels 1 and 2, are we talking K-12 as well?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And then can you help us understand what that would look like, ELL for their content? If we're doing K through 12, how would that look like for the outside of the ESL class that they have?
Well, yeah, we're going to need to talk about that. I'm going to ask Dr. Pohl to join us, but what I can say is we can have them work with their ESL teachers, but it would be very challenging if we have, teachers that are still home with these children, with their teachers doing multiple things. We would not be able to do that and be able to make sense of it if we're requiring their inclusive teachers to be in the buildings with them as well. So we would definitely need to schedule around them, having them be there and have that instruction from their ESL teachers. Dr. Pohl, you want to add anything to that?
If I may, so the plan, Ms. Basine, is that they would receive their direct EL instruction from their EL teacher, but when they're in a classroom that's maybe an elective class or something other, we would have a Zoom room set up that would be oversaw, so they would actually go back to Zoom in that case. But if we're able to do the centers, then there'll be EL teachers can help support the learning in different ways as well. But they would actually go onto Zoom for different lessons at different points of the day as well. So it kind of be a blended atmosphere for them to make sure that they're not missing other classes, because we wouldn't have all those teachers in the room. And the benefit of still having that online option will really benefit our EL students the most.
Okay. And do you see that being more of an obstacle for the older, for the secondary EL students where, the content may be, more challenging or, may require some more, instructional support?
Well, I think it would be, the same philosophy as how we had EL prior to March 13th. So your students might have been in an EL class specifically with help or with a pull out or a push in system, but there were some classes where they were just in there without the pull out or push in, where they would get support during that pull out session. So it would be the same kind of a balance we would have with this schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so phase 1 is the equity and opportunity students, 4 days a week, self-contained in ELL levels 1 through 3.
Said we would review the 4 days for the Ls. I feel pretty confident in that we would be able to do that, but please give us an opportunity to look at that.
Okay, we're going to vote on this tonight, so the understanding needs to be clear that that's under review.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Clanton?
So I just wanted to go back because I saw, I think it was mentioned IEP in phase 1 as well.
No.
Only self-contained children, Mr. Clanton.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure.
Self-contained settings.
Just wanted to make sure because I wrote it down because I heard it. So I want to make sure that's out of there. Thank you.
Okay.
And then phase 2 is K through 3. 3 is for grades 4 through 5. And revisit the pre-K. Phase 4 is middle years, 6 through 8. And phase 5 would be high school. Ms. Basine? You're on mute.
Sorry. So I'm worried about where our other students with IEPs that may require in person, where that group would fall in this phased process that you just described.
Dr. Pohl, you want to speak to the supports, instructional supports in place for our children not in self-contained settings?
I can. So currently our co-teachers and case managers are working very closely with our students who have an IEP on staying engaged and making sure they have the learning they need. We actually have done some professional development and work with principals actually on Tuesday of this week around specially designed instructional practices in the virtual world and how we're really capturing learning modalities for specifically students with IEPs, but definitely with all of our students. I think the challenge with bringing back specific IEP students who aren't self-contained, then we have the issue of what teachers would come back with them. How does that look? Because the core teacher may still be at home at that point, doing Zoom lessons, and we may have an IEP student. So it would be a delicate balance of would it really benefit the child at that point more than what we're able to do with the students in the class, with the students, with the support of the collaborative teacher and the core teacher at the same time.
Okay.
Let's see. So that was Ms. Basine who asked that question. Mr. Jordan?
Yes, I'd like to know if Dr. Pohl can, during the earlier presentation, when we were looking at the sampling of parents who indicated they were willing to send their students back November the 4th, he read, I think, some numbers by grade level. Can you read those numbers again for at the elementary level based upon that survey data?
Yes, sir. So we had a total of 4,465 students who were represented out of the non-VSA students. There were 2,249 elementary students in that representation, 944 middle school students, and 1,172 high school students that were in that data set.
Oh, I thought you had something at the elementary level by grade. Did you say that?
No, the only thing I had by grade was the one chart that had like the averages and the means in the House A and House B, but the survey didn't go to grade. It just asked, are you an elementary parent? So we didn't have a grade level breakdown on that.
Okay, so with the when the families were using their student ID numbers, is that something that you're able to extrapolate?
So what we found there were a lot of incorrect ID numbers that were typed in because it wasn't, since it was not, we couldn't do a survey through Synergy that would make it so we knew it was the right ID number. So there's been a challenge to try to match that with specific student data.
Okay, all right.
That was the intention, though. You're absolutely right. That was our intention, was to be able to do something like that.
I actually have a couple questions that I probably should have asked earlier, but whenever we're putting together, so when we go to the hybrid model in phase 2 through 5, as we're introducing the grades, so is there going to be will there be efforts to keep siblings in the same cohort group so that siblings will be assigned to A, B, and we don't have a couple on AB and a couple on A and a couple on B, so that if you're a sibling, you're in the same cohort group.
That's correct. And beyond that, even if we had students who were at different citywide centers, we've looked into seeing to make sure if a sibling's at a homeschool in house A and they travel to a different school, they're still on house A, to make sure that we're making that connection.
Great, thank you for that. And also, since we are talking about health and we want to and make sure that, you know, students stay home, whether it's COVID or flu or cold or pink eye or whatever, you know, whatever it is, will students, if they're not feeling like they could come to school, could they stay and still log in at home and be counted in attendance?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Great, thank you.
And we would
Any other
encourage
questions?
that.
Thank you.
Highly.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm not sure I wanted to go away.
Guidance. You know,
Yeah.
a new guidance just came out while we were on this call.
Oh, great.
Not so great.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Ms. Basine.
Does Dr. Birdsong need to share?
Well, it was shared with me by Dr. Pohl, and of course I didn't have an opportunity to read it. So feel free to chime in. But I know there was some research around if you're in the same room with somebody who's positive for, was it 15 minutes or 30 minutes? Initially, that was the guidance. You know, now they're saying consecutive minutes. Now they're saying you could be in the room that was with someone positive for 5 minutes, and then 3 hours later in the room with somebody else for another 5 minutes, and then 4 hours later, you know, that it didn't have to be consecutive minutes.
Just in a 24-hour time period.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, Ms. Basine.
Thank you, Dr. Pohl, for sharing that.
Ms. Basine, did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to point out, as I was looking at these groups again, you know, there are a lot of, and I don't know, Dr. Pohl, Dr. Birdsong, you know, I know there's also a lot of, you know, concern with our special education self-contained students with their, you know, ability to comply with social distancing and masks and all of that too. How would you differentiate that from what we've just discussed with our pre-K students?
And I'll let Dr. Pohl speak to all of the training and discussions he's had with Dr. Walter and our special educators.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I missed that second part, Ms. Basine. Could you repeat that one more time for me? I do apologize.
I was just saying that there are concerns about, you know, with some of our special education students, perhaps particularly our self-contained students, about their ability to, you know, adhere to social distancing and wearing masks, you know, and all of that and may require some more interaction from a teacher. How do we differentiate that decision from what we've just decided with our pre-K students?
So, you know, that you're correct in many instances where that is a possibility issue. We've been working with the self-contained teachers are working with their students on mask wearing and working with parents on mask wearing and self-contained, so that we're trying to establish that routine before they even come back to school. But there is a possibility where it could be an instance. We are also reaching out to partners across the region who might have some students back in classes already to see what they're doing and to learn from their experiences as well. And we're doing that for pre-K and our self-contained special ed students.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear you say you're doing for pre-K too, because, you know, I feel like that too, that our little ones are practicing wearing a mask. And, you know, now being into the that, you know, that is happening among that age group as well. So I'm glad to hear that you're saying you're looking at what other districts are doing and how well that's going, because I certainly want to keep that open for getting that age group in when we can as well.
Right, and I would like to.
Thank you.
No problem. And if I could clarify as well, when we're talking self-contained, we're talking self-contained K through 12, not pre-K. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware
No,
of that.
I know.
Because we've held the pre-K back. There's some questions coming in on the side about that. So I just want to make sure that the public knew that as well. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dr. Gabriel?
Would this be a good time to put forth some type of a motion so that we can adopt the phase-in plan?
I think so.
Okay. All right. I think Mr. Clayton has it written down.
I do.
Okay.
Maybe not.
I mean, I've written down
I can make it too.
the plan, but I just wanted to make sure. So we're proposing. Well, hold up. Before we do that, let me just make sure, because I think there's one question that's still out here. Are you all still looking at the November 4th date? And if so,
No, 14 days of consecutive lower risk or lowest risk indicators.
So 14 days, got it.
We have to have 14 days. So if we have 14 days by November 4th, let's go. But it's very unlikely we will. So as soon as we have 14 consecutive days in the greens, as we already voted on, that's going to trigger this phasing in period.
And so these phases are done every how many weeks? Because if we're taking the dates out, I'm just trying to figure out what's triggering.
That's a great question. And what I had said earlier is my expectation would be go 14 more days and then allow the others, and maybe we might come to a case, for example, where so looking here, so November 4th, we could change this. We could say, I kind of could, because they're coming out of, this is right after Halloween and kids are trick-or-treating and gathering. And maybe we want to move that to, let's see, like
November the 9th.
11th. And then you go down to November 30th, and November 30th is right after Thanksgiving. We might want to give that some time and move it to December 7th. And then the 4th, the February 1st, and then maybe February 14th. I don't know.
Yeah, because remember you added an extra phase in because you split the first phase into two parts. So the dates don't work anyway.
So we could work with these dates though. We could postpone November 4th to November 11th. So phase 1 would be, if you want to write this down, phase 1 would be November 11th. Phase 2 would be December.
I have a problem with putting dates on them because
you can't do dates if you're going to do 14 consecutive days in lower risk. You have to wait for that whenever that time period comes. So that may need to be in the motion. I don't think you're going to be able to set dates because
I don't think so either.
Dates are going to be.
Because the metric determines the dates.
Transition time. You can talk about your transition time between phases.
Yes.
Yes. No dates.
I would recommend a transition time of at least 3 weeks, and I'll tell you why. I think parents need time in order to make preparation. And if you're mixing children, if they are going to share something, it's going to take a week for them to start sharing, a week for them to have symptoms, and then if there are going to be cases that pop up, then that 3 weeks gives us enough breathing room then to, if we need to pull back or if we can go ahead. So I would say 3 weeks in between the phases at least would give us the time that's needed, since we're bringing in, new entities into the system. New children into the system. That would be my recommendation. But I wouldn't put any dates on this, on what we're getting ready to propose right now. I think we're on a roll here, and I think we can work with these phases. And I think if we give ourselves the breathing room of at least 3 weeks in between the phases, that's okay. But that would just be where I would start with.
I'm sorry. I was just saying that because of holiday, I was just giving an example if that were to be the case.
And I understand. I think that's, yes.
So any opposition to 3 weeks? Okay. We'll keep it 3 weeks.
So if I can, I'm trying to think about how to craft this motion for you. So we have 5 phases, right?
Yes.
All right, 2 consecutive weeks, 14 days is the consecutive, right? 14 days. And then we have 3-week transition between the phases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ending health metrics, because
Ending health.
Yeah, start with the health metrics, because that's what pushes the go button.
right, and
Okay,
evaluation of
so
health metrics throughout.
got it. So I will say, Madam Chair, if I may, I move that we adopt the agreed upon 5 phases. That 2 consecutive weeks, 14 days upon, let's see, with agreed upon CDC, what do we call that? I'm sorry.
Indicators for dynamic decision-making.
Yeah, decision-making with the lower and lowest
risk levels.
With a 3-week transition between the phases pending, I guess what we already said, health metrics, right? Or pending health metrics.
Again, you're right. Between your transitions, if that's what you're talking about.
Yep. Pending the health metrics between the transition. So with a 3-week transition between the phases. Did I need anything else?
So could you reread the first part where you identify when the go button's pushed? When we begin this process, when we hit the all grades.
2 consecutive weeks, 14 days. And that was based upon the CDC. What did you say, Noel?
Indicators for dynamic decision making.
Yeah, thank you. That was the lower and lowest green level. With a 3-week transition period between the phases. And that was, did you want the pending the health metrics?
Pending health metrics, because I think we need to evaluate the health metrics.
Yeah, pending health metrics. All right, I'll clean this up there. Ms. Tanner, did you get that?
Muting me. Okay, Rick had to unmute me. Yeah, you adopt the 5 phases, 2 consecutive weeks, 14 days with agreed upon CDC indicators of dynamic decision-making with the lower risk levels and the green with a 3-week transition between the phases pending health metrics.
Yep, lower and lowest.
Lower and lowest.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Lower and lowest risk levels.
Lowest risk, yeah, there we go.
And green and greener, or green, dark green.
Should we outline those phases just to make sure that we're clear? I have them written down.
Yeah, I mean, we can include those and I don't have a problem.
Okay, so I'll just jump in. The phase 1, equity and opportunity students, including self-contained special ed students, grades K through 12, and English learners, groups
Okay,
1.
The self-contained for 4 days, make sure you.
I was going to wrap that all in with the English learners, 1 and 2, with knowing that the division needs the opportunity to go and review it.
And
So we understand that.
1 through 3 under review.
That's right. Phase 2, grades K through 3. Hybrid.
Yep.
Phase 4, 4 through 5, grades 4 through 5 and revisiting pre-K.
Is that phase 3?
That's phase.
That's phase 3.
Phase 3.
Phase 3. Phase 4.
Right, so let's restate that phase 3, grades 4 through 5, hybrid, revisit pre-K.
Discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Phase 4, grades 6 through 8. And phase 5, high school.
Hybrid.
Hybrid.
Ms. Basine?
Would you consider in phase 2 bringing in 6th and 9th graders?
I would
phase 2
key transition years.
But why would it be phase 2?
Well, you have K3, which is at the elementary level, but could you bring in 6th and 9th graders?
What about you would do with the 6th and 9th graders with phase 3, which would be 4th and 5th?
I could do.
That would be, wouldn't you think that would be more appropriate than bringing them in with the K3s?
I'm not following. I'm not following you.
If you bring grades 6 and 9 in phase 2, you're bringing them in with K3 children. If you brought grades 6 and I understand what you're saying about 6 and 9, I don't have any problem with it. If you brought 6 and 9 in at phase 3, which is grades 4 and 5, it seems like age-wise that would be more appropriate. They're bringing them in when we have the little babies in there.
Well, I guess, but we're not bringing them into the same buildings. That's why I'm confused with.
Okay, that was just my suggestion. I can, phase 2 or phase 3 just seemed more appropriate time to do it. But either way.
Well, if you're bringing them in phase 3, some of our schools have the K through 8 or 3rd through 8. So that'd be more people in the school than it would be in phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So phase 2 does make more sense in that.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Because you're not adding anyone to the elementary school, whereas you'd be adding people to the
just to the K8 combined. Okay.
Combined schools.
Right.
And just to caution you, don't forget, just as you're planning, remember in the 9th grade, kids may be in, classes with seniors and juniors. And so scheduling and having those teachers be in the classrooms if they're going in for in-person, if the majority of the kids, say, for example, a 9th grader is taking an advanced level course and there's mostly 11th and 12th grade kids in it, their teachers won't be in the building.
Okay. Well, then you can, that's helpful.
Sounds like a great plan, but
yeah.
So we're just gonna keep it where we got it.
Yeah, the high
Let's
school.
keep it. Let's keep it with what we have then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Got it. So, Miss Tanner. I want to make sure we got the.
You know what? Do you mind? I know this is breaking protocol, but can we hear from our student representatives? Does anyone object?
Yeah.
No.
This is breaking protocol. This is
actually a good idea.
Yeah, Ms. Simpson, do you have anything to say? You've been so patient with us.
Yeah, I think when I'm listening to it, I just think, understanding that the quality of actually going back to school might not be what it could be, I guess. And I understand completely that in an imperfect scenario, there's no perfect solution. But I just know that if we go back to school in, a model that isn't ideal, then our education experience will actually be worse than it just would be online. And it's hard because I want to go back to school so bad, and I know my peers do too. But I just don't think at this point that the educational experience is even going to be worth it unless we work like certain things out that I can tell we're doing now. But yeah, it's just not going to be worth it, especially with the hybrid model. Even going back to school and seeing your teacher 1 day a week, right now we see them 2 days a week. So even that seems worse to me. And so I think the quality of the educational experience is being hindered by these plans. And so that should be taken into consideration too.
Thanks, Ms. Simpson. Ms. Burrs, do you have any comments for us?
I agree with Georgia in that it would be really nice to get back into the buildings to see people and all, but that the quality of education wouldn't be as good until the issues are worked out. Yeah, I agree.
But remembering that you can always choose the virtual model. That'll be there all year. And for your choice.
Yeah.
Right. What I was trying to say is that at least for right now, I'm seeing my teachers 2 times a week, but in the hybrid model, which I think was discussed earlier, it might be even harder to have that connection, the same connection you do on a direct to Zoom call with your teacher on a day where they're also teaching in-person students. So I think it would be more kind of like we're only seeing them once a week And to me, that is a very long time without seeing my teachers. Even right now, I go from Monday to Friday without seeing my teachers with the asynchronous Wednesdays, which is okay. But then imagining going Monday to Monday without seeing that teacher is really overwhelming, especially for classes where I have, AP exams and, it's not just SOLs, but you need to learn the material to even move forward with your coursework in upcoming years where, things might return to normal.
And that's a very good point, and maybe something as we start moving our way in there, that'll be something that Dr. Birdsong can guide us through, trying to keep those points in mind. They're very excellent points.
I actually had a question regarding asynchronous Wednesdays since it came up, but I don't know if this was, if there's a reason, I guess, to stay on the bell schedule with the odd and even days. But like I said before, that leaves us only seeing our teachers on Mondays and Fridays, and then the other teacher Tuesday and Thursday. And I understand with attendance, we still have to take attendance on asynchronous Wednesdays, but teachers aren't necessarily supposed to assign work. So I was just gonna call to question whether maybe we could have one class on Monday and Thursday and the other on Tuesday and Friday. So we're not going 4 full days without seeing that set of teachers. And that would be on the middle and high school level with block scheduling.
Actually, that was the idea that I like too. So, but we'll let Dr. Birdsong work on that.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Georgia as my consultant.
Yeah, I think we're gonna pay her by then.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies. Dr. Gabriel?
Yeah, Georgia, you have articulated some excellent points, and I think that your perspective just adds a point of view that we just cannot not pay attention to. And so I know that we've done some work so far on these phases. My hesitance is still there when it comes to the hybrid model. And so if possible, I'm fine with the phases, but if we can just take hybrid out of it for right now, I don't know if that would ruin, what we've worked on so far, but I agree with where Ms. Simpson is coming from with regards to the instruction for hybrid, but I'm willing to go with the will of the board too, if everybody wants to keep it in as hybrid.
Let me offer this, because Dr. Birdsong has spoken at length about the challenges that they're trying to overcome, and that this hybrid model is really the only way that we can move forward in the current, with knowing what we know right now. So, this is a work in progress, and I think we've already made a lot of good progress today, and this is a jumping off point that we again vote on this plan, and if we need to come back and make modifications as we learn more, or if new opportunities or resources become available to us, then I think we can revisit it. But right now I think we need to approve this plan, give some direction to our administration, and if we need to come back to it, that's what we need to do as needed.
So, Madam Chair, so with the motion on the floor, I think based on what Dr. Gabriel added with the phases there, could we just, with a motion, I probably want to add that we instruct the administration to continue to look at options as we begin to, for hybrid or in-person education. And so we adopt this plan, but we still send a strong message to the administration, keep looking for other options to present back to us as we continue looking at phasing this in.
Ms. Basine and Mr. Jordan, I saw your hand up too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Ms. Simpson, thank you. And Ms. Burtz, thank you so much for your words. Your student voice is incredibly important here. I've shared several times now my concern around the hybrid, and I agree with Mr. Clanton that we should ask it, to keep the options open and to continue to work on them. Particularly, we'll be asking our families, right? We're giving them the option for the second semester about whether they want to choose VSA or that's correct, right? Like that they will have the option to enroll for the second semester should they choose to do so, right? Yeah.
Yes, we did share that if during this, not until the second semester, that they would be able to enroll in the VSA. And I don't want to overspeak. That is correct, Dr. Pohl, based on our latest work session, right?
Correct. And we're actually encouraging if parents know that they prefer to keep their students home all year, that we're working out communication now with Dr. Cataldo and others to make sure that parents know how they can register for VSA to stay online. That way we can get even more stable numbers for us to work from.
Okay, well that was the point I was getting at, is to get to a point where we have stable numbers and obviously a clear understanding of what those options are, so that our parents can and our families can choose make that choice for themselves. But I think to still work on options, come back, let's talk about what resources are necessary to make it happen, and see if we can make some non-hybrid options available to more students than what we're currently have planned in these phases. So anyway, that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you, Ms. Basine. Mr. Jordan?
Yes. Before we leave tonight, are we going to be discussing how to shore up the existing online learning that we are currently delivering, or is that going to be for another time?
What do you mean by shoring up?
Shoring up. So we've been doing online learning for 9 weeks. We know that there are students that have challenges with that. We know that, as I mentioned earlier, there are schools that have had challenges with engagement. There have been other issues. If you look at the survey data, there was 20% or so, I can't remember exactly, of those that responded indicated some concerns that they had. Teachers indicated some concerns that they had. So I know we're working on this phase in whenever we get to the green place, but there's also existing learning that we know that many children and staff are challenged with. And so I didn't know if that's something that we're going to deal with tonight, or if not, when we're going to deal with it, because since it seems like it will be more than likely several weeks, possibly months, before we do anything that is in person, then we still have some work that we need to do for what exists. And so, I didn't know we were going to spend this level of focus. I'm glad we have, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that what we currently are offering is not working for everyone. And even in the survey data, we really don't know right now if we even reached, we don't know how wide of a group of parents that we reached in the survey data itself. But research is telling us, our attendance data is telling us, parents are emailing us. We know that we had, even with the sampling, folks that felt that it was important for them to have opportunities for their children to get in person. If that's not going to be available, then I think we need to have some deep conversation around, what are we offering now? How's it really going? What are students learning? Assessment schedules and things of that type.
So, Madam Chair, since we're in discussion on the motion that was been presented, I'd like to just make the friendly recommendation to my colleagues, if we can direct you and Mr. Jordan, who serve along with the superintendent in agenda planning, and to take this item here and to find the appropriate time so the administration can come back with the necessary recommendations. and have that thoughtful conversation at a later
Thank
date.
you, Mr. Clinton. Yeah, I was just waiting to hear if it was pertinent to the vote, the discussion here.
But I want to hear what he wanted to say, Joe.
So, yeah, I think that's something, Mr. Jordan, you and I can talk about, getting it on the agenda. We don't have plans to talk about it today. This is the last item on our agenda today.
So if all hearts and minds are clear, Madam Chair, I'd like to call the question.
So who made the motion? Who seconded it?
I made it. I think Dr. Gabriel seconded because she added a whole half.
Okay. Have we exhausted discussion? Because I had Lauren down here for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Campson, I cut you out? I'm sorry.
No, actually, what you suggested is what I was going to suggest. I think Mr. Jordan has an excellent topic that we do need to get an in-depth discussion. I don't think it needs to be done tonight. And then I was going to suggest that y'all write the agenda, then you can just place it in there sooner rather than later, because it is something we need to address. So y'all really taken care of it before you got to me.
Right. Okay. All right. Ms. Tanner, please call the question.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Jordan, did you have something else?
Just a clarifying question then. So on the motion that we have on the floor that describes what we would do with phasing in, the default is what we have now will stay in place until such time this phase-in motion kicks in. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that's what we're saying here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Tanner.
Okay. Basine?
Having a hard time. Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Planton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Good job, everyone. I mean, this was really, really difficult task. So I just want to applaud you all. We made it through the tough discussions, and we arrived at some direction. And of course, this is really a jumping off point. And thank you to the administration for all of your guidance.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, can we make a recommendation? And Dr. Birdsong, you're probably already on this, but that we get some type of clarifying of what this motion is, some one page or something. I don't know if you got your newsletter that clarifies what this is before different versions start getting out there.
Absolutely. Our media folk are writing as you're discussing the issues. So yes, we will come out with something in writing so that it's very, very clear to our stakeholders.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Yes, Ms. Campson.
Just real quick to Dr. Birdsong, and we're going to start putting on the front page of our website a daily report of where the metrics are. But didn't we decide to do that so we and parents could go and look at it on a daily basis?
We didn't.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought that we already started doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.